현재 전부들던 힘이 장소는 모는 전부가 별도 바그르 당공 장도 실물도 돈바 특제 장라 숑서로 거라도 그런 전향분 거라 연도 건조가 있겠다. 돈이 냠보를 빌남저바 혼자 남저로 zon으로 소란데 오늘 저러고 세니 장감소 저거 특집이잖아. 지금 번조장라 소란데 공개 또 반포를 신지나 能为度化一切众生，请大家发布上殊善的菩提心。更高我上级中等的南极学了么？学把龙学当用是学被三千南的律学的上级金在把么学把那刚阳买多，更高我都是把对到当用蒙被国家吃吃动，国家吃国。고 gyartom cho gyachir sabje semchir nam kanne nyomo ba te da tamchir sanji chum dende nam jim za prapshe to kanga onda na sanji chu tamchir kun jig ba jib jabe chu jir ko te chu jir ko ndar jig bi chan chip san wa te na yonda na chimbo ko pa tamchir ko pa tamchir da ko pa tamchir da ko pa tamchir da cha ba ti de jang sha ba pom chok za bi tamchir tang dambi sanji ji jang nam si shimba me chang kongwa me pa 공화 강매바 용돈 개침복 고바 담치던 담바산 지지상 남나 가야 매바 니바야 매바 대정 소바 남나랍도 르무르 시에도 산지정 등대 주담점냐바니 특수 제바 남지 심진 용서문 브르샤 유저도 산지지정 나소서 돈바되는 곰살도 강가 온더타테 산지지정 남지 용돈 잔다 잔다 나소서 저리양 샬름지 케비 산지지정다 남가 덕다든 매바 대정도 건가워 대전 서바 남지선 지지일 거 다다도 저러왔대 양 대전 서바 남나 첫밤에 베이시는 타다바 마요노 건가워 상제 탐지질 거 즈그당 가독당 즈제당 거당 찬당 르 점바당 저점당 당연전의 시르 넘버 조라더 넘버 조르 이심 동아당 또도만 지바당 상지지 추 남당 샴바 쳔보당 혀지 쳔보당 파벌 공바당 쇼름당 쇼바당 람당 제 차다당 줄동바당 심진 용즈르면 브르셰바당 심진 넘버 조라당 용 장용즈 더바당 상지지 주담지 용즈 조브름 총대 티나양 더버 조버 상지지 샤오 대정 쇼바지 샤오 상지지 샤오 건가오 츠그대 심지 또는 제바당 츠 넘버 예바 강연바테나 교도 츠유가르와 드그장 데버러 건더 샤체버샤와 마요노 동섬도 도버심진 남자 건가오 교당 저와 망도 도바 잠바당 zon도 도바 노남쪽도 저러라 건가오 당 자비 심진 때도 담지 지장양도 버조버 상지 집샤와 당 대정 소바 집샤와 당 상지 집샤비 츠그대 심지 또는 удобно завртан бана карвариян жан конда чепраманисо конгао терда санди шанчмна цадме парте тержан шабанам дижерап пуба самди мети потенеп жондан де цедан дамба конгао ландер кичи сурдо жондан де ти 지르라 더 망도 도범 촉고지 담만차고 정던데 집값 살와 건가고 교도 준비선 마케지데 집지르제나 건가고 교도 냥도 남라 공대 망도 도범 촉고지 네 단계 상주선화 나나는 마요노 건가고 상주선 건가고 상주 세머 다죠 때도 남람 개바다 거초도 좀을 시아나 마인데 건가고 jamzo jimbo tamji jihtang na tsa zong rima ni ji shanzu sangwa namji sherab na ishi dang jamba dang zong da bubik dang na tsa zong rima ni zo ganga wo shanzu sangwa sholum namna kyodo dang nyum su ji shi dipshir di jibshir jina ganga wo ju lo zamba chima mipa chokpir nga chok chiglab ko par taban nyantu dang rang sang ji ji zimchir toba tamji jib karo shiwa tong chok da yang zimchir nam number chumchatamji stone many so, then John the Daniel Shabbat, Pobam Chok, Zagbi, Sanki, Jani, Harbab, Zawate, Tamchi, Tarmo Jerde, Dejan Shabala, Shamzarjan, Kirkij Zordo, Jordan de, Dachakandra, Sanki, Jan, Amber and Dushi, Kiba, Yilabjiba Namda, Power and Sarlo, Tiji, Lata, Jena, Jordan de, Dachak. Jumdende namji sanjiji yerdan tablam keban samji mitjebar dedok semjin tamjiji yongzo diver member jiver lad jerta barab jeba terta ko bartar tono dejan jaba jumdende dagjig jiktenji kamar boba tamjiji jum chog derem chi yang jumdende jiza jambarin jerve chur zongshi ji dagjigla sarwa sora terkijik soradam jumdende ji ka sarwa rigjiwa chantu sangwer number tarwa zabad Mazaba Jibshawa wo Jibshawa yodo de la Titi Flabrashar de la Kangjena, Zapa Jibshawan and Dishizo, Mazaba Jibshawan, Dimashizo, de la Shanchel when Dishi Zapra Mersha and Dimashi Lagan, Nebra Mersha wo. 好，下面我们
Well, so we will resume the Vimalakirti Sutra class. We've paused it for a period of time because I went out to see the doctor and went to different places, give some teachings, and so on. So today, we will continue with the Vimalakirti Sutra. We are using about 1 year of time. We have used this 1 year of time to explain the sutra, and I think we don't have too much left now. And because of that, I really hope that you could persist all the way through with great attention. It's very difficult to accomplish something. It's very difficult to make aspiration and then finish it. I understand that you must have encountered lots of obstacles and have different things coming up in between. But I think it's quite important that we should persist all the way till the end. Well, we are currently at the chapter 11. In the previous chapters, we've already learned that then Vimalakirti was sick, and then a lot of people, bodhisattvas, as well as many Buddhas or bodhisattvas from different Pure Land to visit him. From chapter 11, Vimalakirti and lots of the Shravakas and Pratika Buddhas, as well as the bodhisattvas coming from the fragrance accumulation Pure Land, all come to the Shakyamuni Buddha and to Vimalakirti's room. At that time, they shared a meal that the bodhisattvas brought all the way from the fragrance accumulation Pure Land. And over there, the bodhisattvas explained how the bodhisattvas and Buddhas then perform their Buddha work in the Pure Land of accumulation of fragrance. And in the previous class, we've already talked about all the Buddha work that is performed over there, such as illumination and such as use conjured person and so on. That's the things that the bodhisattvas and Buddhas would carry out in Saha world. We usually think that what Buddha work means is such as chanting, recitation, and so on. But what is the real meaning of Buddha work. It is, in fact, throughout skillful means to tame sentient beings and lead them to liberation is Buddha's work. Most of the time, we would consider that Buddha's work is something that is very positive, so that people could accept very easily. But in Vimalakirti Sutra, it talks about lots of things that's very difficult for us to accept right away, such as the afflictions are also ways of tame people, and so on. After listening to this sutra, I think whenever we encounter any afflictions, obstacles, any kind of difficult situation, I really hope that you could view it in such a way, because in the way that it could lead you to liberation. And this is a better way, a better way of dealing with afflictions.
那么，那么这个佛师呢，就是按照有些大德来讲的话呢，
So Buddha's work, according to some masters during their commentary, they talk about the kind of Buddha's work that is rather positive, and then there are the Buddha works that's rather more from the other angle. In the previous class, we've already talked about how everything's illusory and dreamlike, and illumination, and all of those. Majority of Buddhists, I think nowadays they can only understand what they habitually have received, but they don't really understand the profound meanings that's taught in Buddhism. Therefore, I really think it's quite important for the Buddhists to spend lots of time in studying the Dharma. Lots of times, I think we consider ourselves as Buddhists. We understand Buddha Dharma, we consider ourselves understanding the Dharma, but really, we don't understand even a glimpse of what the profound Dharma is talking about. We mostly only understand what we think we understand, but we don't understand what the profound Dharma really is talking about. In the previous class, we've already talked about the positive aspect of describing the Buddha's work. And then the next part, which is what we're going to learn today, is from the other angle, from the negative angle, talking about the Buddha's work. So over here it talks about thus Ananda, given there may occur these 84,000 gateways of afflictions of 4 maras, which trouble sentient beings. I think for majority of us, it's very difficult to understand it, to fathom the meaning behind it. The 3 poisons and the afflictions that is of great number of 84,000 can be the gateway to Buddha's work, or can be the gateway of to the Dharma. In a commentary, it says that there are the 3 main poisons: greed, anger, and ignorance, as well as it's a little warm here. Did you open the windows? Could you please? In the morning, I went to walk around and to oversee, to inspect the exams. I noticed that all of the people were writing on their exam, but all the windows are closed. And when I enter the room, it's a great fragrance. At that time, I thought, did I enter into the land of accumulation of fragrance? So, afflictions. In the Sutra of the Good Kalpa, it describes Sutra of the Good Kalpa, it says that there are then 21,000 of afflictions that is to the afflictions of greed, and 21 gateways that to work with the affliction of anger, and 21,000 to work with the affliction of ignorance, and 21,000 gateways to work with the three together. So altogether, there are 84,000 gateways to work with the afflictions. So to work with the afflictions, there are 84,000 gateways or methods as taught by the Buddha. According to Kumarajiva, in his commentary of translation, he said that there are three ways of describing the Buddha's work. The first one is the virtuous deed of Buddha's work, and then the non-virtuous deed, and then there's the neutral deed of Buddha's work. So you know that there are the good ones and there are the non-virtuous ones that could consider as the Buddha's work, but there are also the neutral ones. For example, the space. The space is neither virtuous nor non-virtuous. Just as in Tantrayana teachings, we talk about meditating by gazing into the space. So that is Buddha's work as well, that is neutral. So how could the afflictions and formaras be a way of liberating sentient beings? It is that if one could see the nature of the afflictions, then it is use poison to fight poison. In the commentary of Vimalakirti Sutra by Master Jizang, it says that to eradicate desire using desire, to eliminate hatred with hatred, the same as a skillful doctor who fights poison with poison. A good doctor could use poison to fight poison. Of course, when we first hear such concept, it would be very difficult for us to understand or to grasp it. We would feel that how could you use poison to cure poison? But for good doctors, they can do that. In the Humane King Sutra, it also stated that before living beings attain Buddhahood, I think this is in the 4th chapter. Also, in the 4th chapter of Vimalakirti Sutra, it also talked about how the how the affliction is the Buddha's place. And over here in Humane King Sutra, it stated something very similar. It says that before living beings attain Buddhahood, Bodhi is affliction. But living beings do not see Bodhi as affliction before living being attain Buddhahood. But after living beings attain Buddhahood, at that time, even afflictions is Bodhi.
就是已经用了什么呢？下意就是比较这个下等的医生的话呢，就是他把这个
And in the later part, it also describes that a bad doctor, what they could do is that they transform medicine into poison, such as nowadays. When the doctor is not good at his trade, then he would use some medicine that is not the right medicine for to cure the patient. In such a way, the doctor is actually killing the patient, which means that he's using the medicine as a poison. But for a good doctor, something may seem to be poison, but for a good doctor who's very skillful and knows how to work with it, then he could use the poison as medicine to cure his patient. Similarly, for practitioners, if they have afflictions, if the practitioner is good, then they can transform it into realization and insights. But for practitioners who do not have good realization, who do not maintain good practice in such a way, the practitioner, even if the practitioner has the Bodhi or the enlightenment quality in front of them, they would perceive it as affliction. And this is quite pitiful because some practitioners may seem to be practicing Mahayana practices, but because of their afflictions and wrong views and not able to realize the Bodhi, then they will not be able to be liberated afterwards, and vice versa. So I think this is something that we should really contemplate upon. The three poisons, in traditional view, we feel that three poisons should be then worked against with. But over here, it says that the afflictions could be of favor to Bodhi, or they are Bodhi. Why 84,000? In some ways of calculation, it says that in the greed, anger, to work with greed, anger, ignorance, and the all three together, there are 21,000 ways each. And then how did they get the 21,000 each? Because the Buddha has 350 merits, virtuous deeds, and times 6, which is the 6 paramitas, that would be 2,100.
然后他还有那个愿那个4大和6境啊，就是这样来推动的话呢，
times 10, which is 4 great elements and 6 objects. In such a way, is 21,000 gateways to work with each of the afflictions, such as greed and anger and ignorance and so on. My computer is scrolling by itself. I think maybe it's manifesting impermanence on me. It's being a bad computer today.
下面就是讲到，就是说这个菩萨呢，就是如此法门嘛。
Now, continuing, it says that when bodhisattvas enter these gates, even if they see all the pure and excellent Buddha lands, they do not become happy and do not desire them. the bodhisattvas the bodhisattvas sees the maras and afflictions as the gateways of Dharma, then whenever they see the Pure Lands, they do not get tempted or get really joyous and happy by it, and they do not desire to be in it. Unlike us, who whenever we see really beautiful gardens, when we see really good environments, we feel extremely happy about it. The bodhisattvas are not like that at all. And then the bodhisattvas, when they see impure Buddha lands, they do not become sad, such as in human realm, if you see some poor countries, you see some dirty environment, such as the places in Sahara world, like in some African countries. And at that time, the bodhisattvas do not become sad, not become hindered, and not become melancholy, and they do not feel that it is of benefit to them or of harm to them at all. The Pure Lands or impure lands, the bodhisattvas do not feel happy to one or sad to the other. They have great equanimity towards both. They merely generate pure minds with regard to the Buddhas, being joyful and respectful towards the unprecedented teaching they encounter. So they often uphold such kind of joy and respectful mind towards those teachings. And then the merits of the Buddhas, the bodhisattvas, they understand and they are already in the kind of realization of how the pure and impure are of equanimity. And then the merits of the Buddhas, the Tathagata, are universally same, are of equanimity, and it is in order to convert sentient beings that they manifest the different Buddha lands. The Tathagatas, they already grasp the great equanimity of all dharmas, of all phenomena. Therefore, they would use any method to only tame the sentient beings, sometimes manifest into pure land, sometimes impure land. In some sutras, it says that some of the Buddhas, the 7 Buddhas, some Buddhas are tall, some Buddhas are rather smaller, and their heights are very different. However, all these kind of heights are no other than a way to convert sentient beings, to lead sentient beings to liberation. In fact, there is no difference of good or bad. The nature of it is of great equanimity, and there is no difference between pure and impure. In the great treatise on the perfection of wisdom, where it says that Shakyamuni Buddha also has a Buddha land, as pure as Amitabha's land of utmost bliss. As well, Amitabha Buddha also has only pure land, not only pure land, but also impure land, the same as Shakyamuni's Saha world. I think this is something that you've never heard of. Master Chi, he also stated that Shakyamuni Buddha, he also has a pure land in the west, and it's impure. It is a pure land called Wushen. So the Buddhas, they have pure and impure lands in order to tame different kinds of beings. And in that pure land of Shakyamuni Buddhas, he is over there right now and turning the Dharma, the wheel of Dharma. Pure or impure, it is to it's very fixed to some people's mind, but from the ultimate meaning, it is in fact not fixed. In some commentary, they also talked about how when it is pure, then they would manifest the purity. The Buddhas in front of defiled sentient beings, they will then manifest the defilement. The beauty or not, they are completely depending on oneself. And to the Buddha's insights, it is really of great equanimity, and there is no beauty or ugly. I think this must be very difficult for you to grasp, isn't it? And Vimalakirti Sutra has been challenging our habitual patterns. In our previous habitual understanding, we would think that pure is pure, impure is impure, good is good, and bad is bad. For Shravakas and Pradika Buddhas, yes, they understand it as such a way, but for Mahayana Bodhisattvas, they would understand that pure and impure, they're of great equanimity. If we have lots of conceptual differentiation of pure and impure, then our world would manifest in such a way, otherwise it would be then of a great equanimity. A few days ago, I went back to my homeland, my hometown. I have a short story to share with you because I remembered my childhood story. When I was young, I had the experience of a turtle. I didn't really want to tell it, but because it could be very embarrassing. But out of very special condition and causes, I will tell you this story. Maybe some of you could not accept it. So I will warn you first. First of all, I would like to then tell you a little bit about my hometown or the place I lived when I was young. Back in 1985, I left the small village that I was born. The village is called the Rurako village. I remember that around that small village there were about 20 valleys. In fact, the area is rather big. Right now, there are about 160 families living there. After I got ordained, I never really returned there until this year. I used to herd yaks over there every day when I was young. The villagers, my hometown folks, requested me to join them for a spring outing or summer outing with them to enjoy the scenery. And then when I went there, it triggered my memory, and I remembered a little story when I was little. I will then show you a short clip later, and I'll show you the story after the short clip. The place where people gathered was the place that's right beside the small lake where I reviewed terma when I was little. The lake's name is called Tsogan. It's a dry lake. Why is that? It's because it's really small and it will get all frozen up in winter. But in the summer, when it's raining, the water will get really muddy. When it doesn't rain, it's rather clear. And because the lake is on the top of the mountain, from there you'll be able to see all the mountains around, and it has beautiful wildflowers as carpets rolling over all the hills. So when I was about 4 or 5 years old, I play with all the kids who herds yaks. Some of those who wear clothing and some of them who don't. The Tibetan herders and the kids are probably different than those of you who grow up in cities. At that time, I played with all of those kids around there. We would pick flowers and we would fight from time to time over there around the lake. And this time when I went back to that place, I then remembered this story. Last time, a Westerner who interviewed me last year, he asked me many stories, but I couldn't remember. But this time, when I went back to my hometown, I remember lots of my childhood stories. And I remembered that I was playing with a group of kids, some boys and girls, and we were bathing and swimming in that lake. At that time, when I dive into the water, I found this beautiful vase, and I was really happy. So I called all the kids around. And when I was young, I heard of the stories of Dechin Lampa. He reviewed termas from lakes. Also, Bema Lampa, who reviewed terma from Minpa in Bhutan. At that time, I was really happy. So I said that I reviewed a terma as well. I discovered a terma vase. And then I wanted to give empowerment to everyone. At that time, the Buddhism is not very open. And however, I went to a few of those empowerments and heard of Bikanzan, which means vase. And then I copied what those lamas did during empowerments. So I put some water in the vase and then pour it into the hand of everyone as well as myself, and they would drink it just as what people would do during empowerments. There was another spring that's very close to this lake. I went to that, rather than lake, it's a spring. The spring is really clear. So the materialistic world, it didn't really change much, but people changed quite a bit. I see all my childhood friends who were rather, well, they aged much faster, let's just say that. And then we went to a small spring. The spring's water is really clear. So I told them that at first I'm going to use the terma to give you the empowerment of Amrita of the terma, and now I'm going to give you the deathless Amrita that comes from the celestial beings and give them the Amrita through the vase. all of a sudden, at that time, there was gathering of dark clouds and started pouring. All the kids started running back, some with shoes and some without shoes, some with piece of cloth over their heads. I said, no, I don't need any of those. I can just have this vase on top of my head. So we went back home after. And when I went back, my neighbor, who was a lama, actually, he was a monk, but he didn't wear a monk's clothes. His name is Lama Longzhou, and he went to different tents and went to ask the neighbors for something lost. And because what the herders would do is that we would set up a tent from one place and then we would move to a different place because the grass would be then eaten by the yaks and then we would move. So Lama Longzhou's family then moved from one place to the valley that's next to our tent through carrying those on the yak's back. And then at that time, the yaks would carry the things up all the way to the top, and then the yak slipped in Togan, which is the dry lake. And all of the furniture and belongings then fell into the lake, so everyone was then fell into the lake. And after they discovered everything else, but they couldn't find the urinal of his mother. He said that, well, the urinal is really good. The grandma's name is Grandma Georgie. She was not nice to kids. She often tell on us to our parents, and then the parents would punish us and spank us. So none of us really like her. And then Lama Longzhou said that I know that lots of the kids over there, they played around the lake. Did they find something? So that was my terma, and we drank the amrita from it, get empowerment from it. I think this fits very well into this pure and impure perception of it. When I was little, maybe because of my some of my connections to the pure and impure Dharma. That's a story that really reminds me. It also reminded me a few other stories I'll share with you later on. So pure and impure, to the children, I think we never really had a grasping towards any of those. We didn't really feel that this is impure after hearing that it's a urinal of a grandma. We didn't really feel anything. Only after a while, when we started fighting with kids from outside, and then they would embarrass us by saying that, are you the ones who drank from the urinal? One of the girls who was there, her name is Ganga. And I asked her, did you remember? She said, yeah, I do, but I don't dare to tell to anyone. I also asked my younger brother, and a few other ones. They don't really remember this story, maybe because they were very young. I remember very clearly, and I thought, well, is it the same as remembering the past life? Maybe this story is rather embarrassing, but that's the truth that happened in my past. Anyhow, let's continue.
这个佛告诉阿难啊，就是如果你见到这些佛陀呢，
So
这个地方
Ananda,
这个
when you observe the Buddha's countries, the lands are numerous. There are the high ones and lower ones, the valleys, the mountains, the plateaus, and the ups and downs of the earth, but the space is not. Likewise, when you observe the form bodies of Buddhas, they're numerous, but their unhindered wisdom is not. Their bodies could be of different colors, of different shapes, yellow, red, and tall and short, but their wisdom is unhindered as the same, because all the Buddhas in the Dharmakaya, they are of one nature. The Buddhas in their nature, there is no high and no low. And then Ananda, regarding to Buddha's form body, in the different editions, the merits are listed more, such as the Tibetan version, there are more merits. There are awesome characteristics and qualities. There are morality, meditation, wisdom, emancipation, knowledge, and vision of emancipation. There are 10 powers of fearlessness and other exclusive attributes of the Buddha. All of these above, they are called the inner virtues, or the inner qualities of the Buddha. In the Tibetan text or Tibetan version, where it says that there's the form, there's the then the light, and the family, all of those are then separated, rather than over here is all together. And the next part it describes the outer virtues, such as their great sympathy, great compassion, and practice of the deportment, their lifespan, explanation of the Dharma, the teaching, and their purification of the Buddha countries, where they accomplish the emancipation of sentient beings. The Buddhas of 3 times, their inner virtues are the same, their inner qualities are the same. We often talk about their morality, meditation, and wisdom. Those are the same. The emancipation and their knowledge and their powers are the same. And from the external aspect of their qualities, their sympathy, their great compassion, their deportments, in terms of their lifespan, well, some could be a little different, but but they're rather very similar. And all the Buddhas are identically replete in all the Buddha Dharmas, therefore they are called the Samyak Sambuddha. They are called Tathagata, they are called the Buddha. For mundane beings, we probably have very similar afflictions, but our meditation, wisdom, and morality, the emancipation, their powers are quite different. So for mundane beings, our afflictions are very similar, but for Buddhas, their merits and their inner realizations are very similar. So therefore, they are called Samyak Sambuddha, or they are called Tathagata, and are called Buddha. So the 3 names. Samyak Sambuddha. We often talk about the right, all-encompassing knowing, which then over here points out what it's not. So over here, right, it says that it's the right path, the right Dharma, compared to the heterodox path or the wrong path. And then all-encompassing, because they understand all the ultimate and relative Dharma. So that's all-encompassing. And knowing is that they know of all the knowledge and wisdom of all the phenomena. And for that, they are called Samyak Sambuddha. For the second characteristic, they are then called Tathagata, which means thus come. In Tibetan, Dejang Chaba. It's thusness, thus come. Suchness. Because they understand the suchness of all phenomena. And for all the Buddhas of three times, they have grasp the understanding or realization of such. And then they are also called the Buddha, which means the awakened one. In Tibetan, it's Sanje. Sang is pure and Je is realization. Sang is eradicate the obscuration of afflictions and all pervasive obscuration. And then they are awakened to the pure knowledge. So that's the name of Buddha, the awakened one. The names of the Buddha also has profound meanings. And then the Buddha said to Ananda, saying that, Ananda, if I were to explain the meaning of these three Sanskrit phrases extensively, you would not be able to experience them completely, even if you had the lifespan of a kalpa. So, if I explain it extensively, even if you had the lifespan of a kalpa, you won't be able to understand and experience it completely. Even if you live for a whole kalpa, even if I extensively talk about the three names to call the Buddha, you won't be able to understand it. Even if all the sentient beings in the Trimegacharya cosm were just like Ananda, who is paramount in erudition, and retain them mindfully with dharani, and even if they had lifespan of kalpa, they would not be able to experience them completely. Even if we live for a long period of time, the Buddha teaches us with his incomparable eloquence, we still won't be able to understand it completely. Thus it is, Ananda, that the Anattara Samyak Sambodhi of the Buddhas is limitless. When we consider that, okay, Buddha is a prince from India, and he's very similar to Confucius, and very similar to Lao Tzu, to Plato, and if you consider the Buddha just like that, just like them, just like a mundane being, just like a famous celebrity, then you haven't really grasped the true meaning of the Buddha or who the Buddha is. Thus it is. The Buddha's eloquence, the Buddha's merits, the Buddha's wisdom is beyond our mind, beyond our concept. In the Golden Light Sutra, it says that the Tathagata's wisdom is as boundless as the sea, that even if all human beings and gods try to measure its vastness over billions of eons, still what they can know is only feel of it. Even over billions of eons, they won't be able to see only a tiny bit of the wisdom and merits of the Tathagata. There are so much that is unknown to us. The scientists, they acknowledge that they only understand 3% of the cosmos, but 97% they still have no idea. The scientists could measure and try to then use their logic to understand what the cosmos is. But they are still quite a blank canvas for the rest of the 97% of the cosmos that we live in. The artificial intelligence, according to a report, it says that by 2045, the artificial intelligence will be able to have the creativity that surpass human creativity and intelligence to the 10 billion times. Well, you never know what the correct number is, but we can see the trend from what we know right now. Artificial intelligence, in 1 second, the information data that they can receive is of great number that could surpass the human intelligence. Human beings only have very limited data. But the nature of mind, the emptiness, and those aspects cannot be measured by artificial intelligence. Similarly, Tathagata's wisdom and the merits of the Tathagatas are not measurable, could not be measured by the Manin beings. People who studied Madhyamika, who studied the Madhyamika Karika and the Avatara and so on, you probably have a glimpse of that, could understand that. Over here it talks about how the Tathagatas has such unfathomable wisdom. For those of you who did not spend a long period of time to study, then you won't be able to understand the wisdom or compassion aspect of Tathagata at all. But if you study, then at a certain time you will be able to have a glimpse or have some understanding of it. And at that time you will be able to generate great gratitude towards the teacher and towards the Buddha. A disciple who could receive the benefits from the teaching taught by the teacher, then the disciple could generate the unregressed devotion towards the teacher and teaching, because he received the benefits. And when the disciple finally realized the nature of all phenomena, then it doesn't matter what other people try to convince him or try to lure him away. The disciple who understood or who already then had the insight of such nature would not be tempted at all. Through the power of Dharma, many people who had glimpses and insights and realizations, they have such deep gratitude towards the bodhisattvas and Buddha and the teacher. Therefore, your devotion is really depending on whether you got the benefits from it or not. Is the Dharma then is the Dharma infused in your mind yet? Recently, I've been translating some of the short teachings of Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche, some of the Tibetan back in the 14th anniversary of Parinirvana of Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche, there was a book, the book of a book of a collection of Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche's short teachings, but it was in Tibetan. Therefore, I taught it in. Therefore, I translated it into Chinese. Over there, it describes this little passage about how Pongso Rinpoche has great devotion towards Mipa Rinpoche. I'm not going to describe too much as I am not able to describe in my words, but what I want to say is that nowadays the students and the teachers, they have a kind of relationship that is difficult. That is very different of those of the teacher-disciple relationship in Buddhism. The scientists and the students, I think it is because of the environment that they grow up in. Just as when I went back to my hometown and some of the herders, they only care about whether they have enough grass to feed the yaks or not. So when I went back to my homeland, I didn't really talk about AI. And if I were to talk about artificial intelligence, then I would become a scientist in their eyes. We have about 600 people in our village now, where we are located of a really remote area, and over there was no university student yet. And when I went back, I realized, wow, I grew up in such environment. So if I were to talk about artificial intelligence to them, then I don't think they will be able to understand it at all. It is the same as if you were to tell people about the merits and wisdom of the Tathagata to people who don't understand it at all. To tell what is emptiness. If you say emptiness, then they would say that, well, emptiness, there is no one in this classroom, then I must have realized emptiness. In the Torch of Certainty by Mipa Rinpoche, he said that you understand that everyone could see the truth that is very much apparent. If emptiness is really that easy to understand, then how could you say the realization of emptiness is very rare, is very precious? Anyhow, I got off the track. Thus it is. So Ananda then addressed the Buddha, from now on I will not be able to consider myself erudite, and then I would not consider myself as that. I think this is not considering, I can't consider myself in such way anymore. And then the Buddha told Ananda, do not become discouraged. Why? I have explained that you are mostly erudite among the Shravakas. I did not say among the Bodhisattvas. Ananda is the foremost in learned in the Shravakas, so maybe he feels a little bit proud about that. But to the Bodhisattvas, they are really, he is not really, he really doesn't have anything to be proud of. Just as university students, if you're a graduate, then you would feel that, oh, I have a bachelor degree, but a bachelor degree may feel to be something really great in front of high school students, but not in front of master degrees or PhDs and so on. So he surpassed the ones who's not as good, but still not as good enough as the Bodhisattvas. And then Venerable Ananda then the Buddha said, Ananda, the wise should not attempt to evaluate the bodhisattvas. How could the total depth of the ocean be calculated? All the merits of bodhisattvas' meditation, wisdom, dharani, and eloquence are immeasurable. the ocean can be calculated, but the merits of the bodhisattvas cannot be evaluated. Bodhisattvas, according to Avatamsaka Sutra, it says that bodhisattva perform boundless activities that are hard for anyone to measure. They appear to engage in all kinds of activities just in order to benefit sentient beings. The activities that's performed by bodhisattvas are of boundless to the mundane beings to count. The Buddha would manifest as someone who has desire, manifest as someone who has anger in front of Nagas. But the Buddha, he himself actually has already eradicated all of those hindrances a long time ago. The ocean could be measured, just as a science nowadays, and they are trying to measure the ocean. But the wisdom, the meditation, and the morality of bodhisattvas cannot be measured. So the Buddha told Ananda, saying that do not try to measure the bodhisattva's meditation, or do not try to measure or evaluate the bodhisattvas. And in some sutras it says that only the Buddha can evaluate and see the other's mind, but not everyone. Yes, as Shravakas, you're of the foremost in the learned. You're really great. But still, you should not evaluate the bodhisattva's activities. The power of, and then in a very short period of time, during the meal, the numinous power conducted by Vimalakirti would be impossible for the Shravakas or Pratika Buddhas to do by their powers of transformation, even in 100,000 kalpas. Let's just think about the conjured person that is manifested by Vimalakirti. He sent that conjured person to the land of accumulation of fragrances, and then invited them over to the Sahara world, as well as how Vimalakirti transformed his room to be empty and sometimes full of people and full of lion seats. The numinous power is unfathomable, the wisdom is unfathomable, and the compassion is unfathomable. So that's the boundless and unfathomable merits of Bodhisattva. So as a Sravaka or Pratika Buddha, you should not then evaluate the activities of Bodhisattva. The previous aspect talks about how the Pratika Buddhas and Shravakas should then have a pure view to the Bodhisattvas. And then the next part talks about the conditioned and unconditioned. The Shravakas and Pratika Buddhas, they have this grasping towards something solid. So to teach and to purify the Sravaka and Pratika Buddha's mind, then first of all they have to then first realize that they cannot evaluate the bodhisattvas. So this is more of eradicate the arrogance of Shravakas and Pratika Buddhas. And the next part talks about how to purify the mind of bodhisattvas. So the previous Bharata talks about purifying the Shravaka and Pratika Buddha, and now we're going to talk about how to purify the mind of bodhisattvas. And at that time, the bodhisattvas who had come from the host of fragrances world held their palms together and addressed the Buddha, "World honored one, when we first saw this land, we generated concept of this inferiority, because look at all the people in the Saha world, they are so short and they are not beautiful, and they're full of defilement. The environment is full of defilement. There is thorns and there are rocks and pebbles on the way." So when we first noticed that, we really felt that this world is of inferiority. And then now we're so ashamed of ourselves, and we are so sorry that we felt that way. Some bodhisattvas, just as some mundane beings, just as how the bodhisattvas manifested over here, the mundane beings would first feel that, first would have a wrong view and wrong ideas, and then after hearing the teaching of the Buddha, then they felt embarrassed about how they felt before. So over here, the bodhisattvas from the Pure Land, they said that we're ashamed of ourselves and have abandoned this attitude. Why? The skillful means of Buddhas are inconceivable. In order to save sentient beings, they manifest different Buddha countries in accordance with the response of sentient beings. These are all the immeasurable, skillful means of the Buddhas. Because the Buddhas would manifest according to the sentient beings. So the Buddhas, in order to tame different beings, they would then manifest the different ways in order to respond to the different faculties of sentient beings. And then according to Sutra taught by the Buddha and Nirgrantha, in that sutra it talks about how when the Buddha is taming people in this world, there are 10 major defilements. I think 12 defilements. When we hear the name defilements, either defilements of karma, defilements of afflictions, when we hear the word defilements, we look down on them, don't we? However, with the help of defilement, we'll be able to see the nature of it and then attain the pure wisdom. Therefore, sometimes when we see the defilement of others, the defilement of external phenomena, then at that time we should then think about how this is defilement of a skillful. It is a skillful means to manifest such defilement. And when you feel that there's great afflictions and great obstacles and difficulties on your path, do not give up. You should view it as opportunity to see that this is a skillful means to attain liberation. You should see it as a helping condition, as a favorable conditions. Just as a good doctor could use poison and cure the patient because they've transformed the poison into medicine. And a bad doctor would do exactly the opposite. So for good practitioners, afflictions is the helping condition to Bodhi. And for bad practitioners, good Dharma becomes the heterodox
那么
view
下
and
面呢，就是
teachings.
说唯然世尊啊，就是那
And
些那
then
个
the
相继
next
世界
one
来
it
的菩萨
says
马上要告别了。
the
他这里唯然我插
bodhisattvas
了几个
from
不同的版本，
the
但是没有特别
bodhisattvas
明显的。咱
from
们当中也是这样的，唯然可能
the
是
Pure
一
Land
个互换
of
词吧，就是
accumulation of fragrance.
就
They're
是什么
about
世
to leave.
尊啊，
Therefore,
啊
over
世尊
here
啊，
they
我们
said,
马上要走
"Please,
了啊，
oh
就
world
像
honored
是
one."
呀，我要离开了，
Just
在
as
我的这
people
个
would
法
say
本上
that,
签两个字啊，我来一趟好
"Teacher,
不容易
please,
啊，
Lama,
我以前
please,
去过
it
那个
takes
新
me
疆和
so
那
long
个
to
什么
arrive
东
here,
北
could,
的
I'm,
这
and I'm
当
about
时
to
呢，就
leave
觉得啊，
tomorrow.
就是
Could
那
you
个地
please
方来
sign
一
my
趟的话
book?"
特别不容易，就是
At
然后我想我以后会去一
In
趟的，
earlier
就是
days, I
说东北
went
和新疆来
to
的一些知识
Xinjiang
的，
as
这
well
是就是应
as
该上个世纪90年代的时
the
候。然后
northeast
我
area.
像是我跟他们要好
I
好的，
traveled
不
by
然的话他
train,
们
and I
太
felt
太
it's
辛苦
so
了，因为
far
当时我
away.
好
And
好
at
大
that
多数
time,
都
I
是
thought
坐
to
火车
myself,
去的，
whenever I
坐火车去
see
的，像乌鲁木
practitioners
齐啊，
coming
就是
from
像齐齐
here,
哈尔这些去一
when
趟
people come
特别
from
不容易的。
Urumqi and
然后回到
Chichihar
这个学院
and
之后的话呢，
and
有
really
好像
far
也
away
没什么
areas,
感觉
I
了，
would
就是
then
我觉
treat
得
them really
不
well
管是
because it
东
takes
北
them
来也
so
好，就
long
是成都来也是
to
一样的，就是
take
我
them
也
so
没有什
long
么
to
特别
travel to
的
here.
就关
And
注
now
过，
I
就
don't
是
really
这样。我
feel
出去的时候
any
就经常，
difference anymore.
尤其是到西方
Let
西方国
them
家去的时候，哇，
be
就是
coming
飞机上都飞
from
了那么多天。那这样的话呢，你
from
会觉得
really
他们
far
什么别的地
place
方来
such
的人应
as
该更加
North
对他们好
America
一点。
or place
就这
like
样想的。
Chengdu.
然后到了这里以后呢，有好像以前对我很好的那些的事，就到这里以后，他们都觉得是
People when
我就我
they
人格不
come
好，就是
afar
以前去
from
他们那的
afar
时候
and
特别
then
自卑，
they
就是然后
come and
现在
visit
过来的
me
时候
in
就不
Larungar
理
and
不
they
理不
feel
睬
that
的。
I am
所以
no longer
你看
paying
那
great
个就
attention
是
to
很
them,
多人呢，就是要
like
到什么
when
这
I
个一
was
些藏地啊，或者是到其他地方，就是一
at
直这个
their
一些法事
cities.
啊，在这个时候呢，就是经常呀，我要离开了，就是你要给我。所以这个佛陀的话呢，就是他相继
Over
世界来
here,
的这些
the
呢，也说的
bodhisattvas
佛陀你
then
愿
said
给我们
that,
就是这
"Oh,
个给一点法，
world
就
honored
是
one,
我
please
们
bestow
回到
upon
那个
us
我们
a
的国
bit
土
of
的
your
时候呢，
dharma
也经常可以
as
依
we
靠这个
return
来
to
就
the
是
other world
意
so
念
that
就
we
出
might
来。
remember
然后
you."
告诉就是这些菩萨，
And then the
说是
Buddha
我
told
的法
those
门当中呢
bodhisattvas
有
saying
无
that
尽
you
无
should
尽的这
learn
个
the
法门。
teaching of
那么你们应该
emancipation
好好
of
的这个
exhaustible
修学。
and
那什么
inexhaustible.
是有
What
尽
is
呢？就是有
exhaustible?
为法叫有尽。
It is the
那么什
conditioned
么是
dharma.
无尽呢？
What is
有为法就
inexhaustible?
是无尽。
It is
那么
unconditioned
如果这
dharmas.
个菩萨的
If
话
you're
呢，
bodhisattvas,
就不尽呢
you
这
should
个有为
neither
法，
exhaust
不
in
住呢
the
就是说无为
conditioned
法。
nor
这句话
abide
很
in
重
the
要，就是这
unconditioned.
个我们
This
今
is
天学的内容
extremely
全部呢
important.
就是住在
All of
这
the
个
things that we
如菩
learned
萨者
today,
不尽有为法，
the
不住
most
无为
important
法，
sentence of this
不
class is that
尽
if
有
you are a
不住无为，
bodhisattva,
这
you should
四
neither
八个字
exhaust
是吧？
the
前
conditioned
面
nor
是凡是
abide
这个菩
in
萨
the
的意思，凡是发了
unconditioned.
菩提心的人呢，
So,
不
for
尽
those
无
of you
为，
who've already
不住
give
无为，
rise
就
to
意思什么呢？就是
bodhicitta,
这个是下面的这
aspired
个这堂课当
for
中讲的非常精彩。所以
Bodhi,
我们这个
then you should neither exhaust
一
the
定要
conditioned
动
nor
的。它大
abide
概的
in
意
the
思呢，就是我们这个
unconditioned.
思速
The
法呢，
next
就不
class
要
would
这个
be
断灭，包括
excellent.
心心啊、
It would
善
be
根啊这
wonderful
些
to hear.
有为是思速嘛，就是不尽是
So
不
you
能
will be
断，
able
就是不能
to
断
learn what
有为
is
法的这个
exhaust
善
the
根，
conditioned
然后也不
nor
能按
abide
住
in
在
the
无为的这种空
unconditioned.
性当中。当然，这
You
个
should
下面
not
会讲
exhaust
啊，
the ones
说我们
that's
以
a
后呢，
conditioned dharma,
在自己的
and
修
you should
行里
not
面当中啊，
abide
一辈子
in
的自己一定要
emptiness
记
or
住这个，
unconditioned.
不然我们
In
有时候
our whole
太
life,
过
we
于的
should
便于
remember
空
this
性法
short
什么这
sentence.
个善根不够。
Otherwise,
有些人
you
呢，就是
will
只
then
有这个什么，
either
就是
abide in
安住在
emptiness
一
and
些
do
空性
nothing,
或者是这个
or
禅定的境界
you
当中。但这
will
两个都需要世俗的这种善根和圣意的善
you
根，
will
或
try
者
to
说是我们
exhaust
这个质变
the
质变双运
conditioned.
反正这里有
It's quite
很深
important
的一些教
to
义啊。就今
remember
天呢，我们
this.
就
You should
重
remember
也
that
就是
it's
说如菩
the
萨者呢，
union
就
of
是
wisdom
不
and
尽有
skillful
为，
means.
不住无为。我现在在微博里面可以发这个，有时候是
I
找不
think
到什么
in
可发
my
的东西。
Tibetan Weibo, I will post this. Sometimes it's very difficult
下
for
来
me to
就发
find
这个
the
就是还是照到一个
the
东西比较
sources.
好，对吧？但很多人都肯定不懂什么叫做
I
不尽
think
有
many
为，不
people
住
do not understand this. It sounds like a tongue twister. Maybe you won't understand, but that's okay. If you understand, you don't understand, and if you don't understand, you understand. This is also another way of teaching. We'll stop here today.